Howdy everybody. It's time for another talk by the fire. Thanks for joining me. Been thinking about this talk for a while, and like most talks that I have, I think most people don't want to hear any of it, don't want to discuss any of it. When I try to talk to people in real life about most of these subjects that I cover, just a bad idea opening my mouth. But I know that there's people I can talk to on the internet or some of my friends back home. Some people are open to talking about anything and willing to be brave enough to just discuss anything. I guess that's when I think about this talk. The Tesseract Matrix Soul Trap talk. And if you Google Tesseract Matrix Soul Trap and see what the AI algorithm gives you, it's not a bad explanation. And like everything that I discuss on my channel, anything that I talk about, I don't necessarily believe it. I'm not telling you this is the 100% truth and you gotta follow it and you gotta believe it. I'm just discussing possibilities based off of evidence, plausible realities for what's going on in this realm. And the soul trap possibility is up there when you really study what's going on here and the truth of what goes on here. Not the fantasy that goes on here, but the hardcore human enslavement and control and sick stuff that goes on. That's when you really start to see how this could be a soul trap for a lot of people. So let's get into it. I wonder if you've ever heard of a tesseract. So I'll put some images up of a tesseract, but it's basically a cube within another cube. So imagine you have one cube and it's moving itself, and then outside of that cube there's another cube moving. It's a really, they say that we can't even visualize it or wrap our minds around this 4D tesseract idea because we're in 3D. You start with 1D, which is like a dot, and then 2D is like a line, and then 3D is like all those lines converging and making this illusion we have of space and feeling things. And probably easy to explain like on a TV screen or a movie screen. You're watching the movie screen in 2D, but you're seeing 3D images behind it. So when you think of a tesseract, maybe we are in 4D, and there's a lot more to this than we actually know. So I love thinking of the new geometry, a tesseract. It's a pretty crazy concept. And then I think most people at this point in their life have heard of the movie The Matrix, have seen it, and you know what The Matrix is all about. It's people living in a false reality, living in a simulation, where they're literally hooked into a pod and they're just batteries, and they've got the metaverse, virtual reality stuff hooked into their spine to where they're living in a computer, basically, but they think it's a reality. While these machines are sucking their life force, using the heat from their bodies to power their machines. Like if you follow the Matrix and the story behind it, pretty crazy. And then the soul trap theory. There's a lot of people, well, there's a few people on the internet that are really talking about the soul trap idea. And one, there's all these different, it's like any other religious or spiritual thought on reality. All sorts of different sects, all sorts of different ideas. With the soul trap, some people see it as a Gnostic, like a Gnosticism thing, to where the Gnostics saw that it was a bad God that created everything. And instead of having a good God, like in the Bible, right? Like people believe there's a good God that created a good place and good people and good things are going to happen if you just sit around and wait and believe. Yeah, I mean, that's just that's really stupid to me at this point in my life, to see what a trick that one is, the God of the Bible. But then if you were just to think the opposite, be like, oh, instead of a good God, what if this was a bad God? And that's what a lot of the Gnostics' teachings went into, as a demiurge, and how this bad God created a bad realm to basically torture people and harvest their bad energy, their bad emotions. And to me it's like, I don't really believe in a God anymore. I don't. I see myself as a sovereign spirit, just kind of like a character in a video game. And if you want to look at the person directing this game that we're playing as God, go ahead. Create whatever fantasy you want here. I think that's part of this game that we're playing. But typical soul trap talk kind of delves into Gnosticism and how there's a bad God who created a bad place, and there's all these invisible entities around us trying to torture us and loosh farm, get the good energy and the bad energy out of us. It's kind of like the Matrix, how we're batteries, when you get into the soul trap theory. But personally, and it's just throwing out speculation, I don't believe any of this stuff, I don't know. It just would kind of make sense, why there are countries, why there are wars, and why people go along with it, and why they go along with slavery, why they go along with all of this crazy crap here. That doesn't take much to just say, I'm not doing anymore. Doesn't take a lot to go against. It just seems that in this whole soul trap theory, AI matrix, you could call it, I think there's a lot of NPCs. I think most 70 to 80% of humanity is a computer program, an AI clone. Doesn't have its own creative abilities. It's just mimicking everything around it and copying everything around it. And that's why you have countries. That's why you have warfare. You have literal robots that don't know any better. But they look like you and me. And it's the majority of what's going on here. So in my soul trap theory, I kind of see that most of humanity isn't even real. They're just extra characters added in to make this experience crazier than it already would be if we were all real in the first place. I just think the NPC reality explains so much. It explains why some people just are not curious about anything at all. And why you might be curious about everything. And you want to know all these crazy things that to other people, like the whole flat earth really gets me. Why a lot of people just say, well, why would I care about the shape of the earth? Why would I? To me, it's one of the most important things you could ever know. It's like we're in a plane. I think the shape of it, if it's moving, it's all very important to me. I'm very curious about that because depending on that, then I can figure out more things about what's going on here, right? It's like a base thing that you should know. But I just think for people to be able to be tricked into the globe reality, or to be tricked into Christianity, to be tricked into Judaism, tricked into being a Hindu, to people being tricked into all this crap, they would have to be bots. Because I just think a genuine creative force, it kind of goes through these things and figures it out. It doesn't get stuck. Unless there's a soul trap, and there's a bunch of trapped souls here that are just stuck in the muck and the mire. So that's kind of part of this soul trap theory is I feel like there's a lot of fake artificial intelligence, a lot of NPCs, but it's a big possibility that real spirits have come here into the video game verse and been captured, and they become like a collection of some dark spirit collector. We all know about people who sell their soul, right? Bob Dylan talked about it on TV to everybody. He sold his soul to the chief in this world. And then you got all these new agers talking about, I signed a soul contract. So you have all these people talking about they sold their soul before they even came here. The soul contract stuff is like, wow, you sold your soul. Which, when I talk about a soul, it's all right here. It's the sole of your foot. It's not some hooey, phooey, like invisible thing. No, it's right here, right now. It's you and your essence. It's your soul. And that's why it's a soul trap. Because you have to be manifested and have a foot and have a soul and have to be here to be loosh farmed, to be taken, for your energy to be taken, right? It's not some distant idea. Like, I can break down how most people are enslaved physically and how their soul is trapped. And most people's souls are trapped by money. Let me tell you, money and fear is the big soul trap going on here. I just feel like this conversation could go 1,000 different ways. But I want to bring it up. I want to talk about it because it's one of those things, like I'm studying, and I'm seeing how a lot of the ideas are far more plausible than any other theory of what's going on here. It doesn't mean I believe it. It doesn't mean I think my soul's trapped in a tesseract. Okay, I think these are interesting concepts to talk about. I figure I chose to come here. I chose to be a part of this time and this crazy crap that's going on. And maybe it is a soul trap, and maybe I'm just here to try and destroy it. And there's a bunch of other people like me that are like, all right, these people have taken this video game too far. They've trapped souls down here. Now it's time to just come in as hard as we can and use our creative powers to destroy it. And it's key that in order to overcome a Tesseract Matrix Soul Trap, you got to be creative. Like, you have to have a creative essence that the Soul Trap Matrix does not have. When you study politics, and warfare, the banking system, the secret societies, the whole Epstein situation, you get to understand this has been going on for a long time. There's been a lot of false flag, fakery, fake country this, fake war that. It's pretty obvious all the countries are working together to enslave each of their own populations, just like the Democrats and the Republicans, right? The red and the blue are working together to enslave Americans. It's a uniparty. And if you can't see that, like, I feel like you got an NPC in you. If you can't tell at this point, they're faking drama to manipulate and control you. It's like, and that's why you grew up with soap operas. That's why we all watch Survivor. You know, the whole reality TV. You wonder why reality TV got so popular. And then they put a reality movie star as your president. It's just like, to me, what's going on here is like really stupid and repetitive and goes on and gets stupider and stupider and more repetitive. And I'm beside myself that the majority of people don't see it. That's why I'm convinced that they are robots. They literally are programmed to not see reality. They're programmed to see what they're programmed to see, right? And you could look at it like these are real spirits that are brainwashed by the TV. I just would think there'd be something deeper in a person to not allow that stuff to go on. But that's me. That's my inner journey, and knowing myself is a real one recognizes a real one. And when there's so many fakes, and so many phonies, and they're all saying the same stuff, and it's all wrong all the time, and it's only hurting them, and then they want you to join with them. There's something beyond, like, sight. You know, you can't, this isn't something you're just going to figure out what's going on here. It seems like there are layers and layers of tricks and traps here. And if it's all just for the fun of it, I wouldn't be surprised. But I figure some people's fun is trapping other souls and treating them like little pets. Watching them squirm, you know. And then I figure I'm into busting that stuff up. I'm into the real freedom. Not this fake freedom in this realm that people talk about. Wave a flag and you're free. Pay your taxes and you're free. I'm talking about sovereignty. And how nobody can tell you nothing. And how you are free. And I just think that idea is kind of what destroys this Tesseract Matrix, is for the real ones to know that they're free and to act on it. Yeah, it's starting to get pretty hot. Kind of wind it down. I just wanted to put this idea out there. And I'm going to put some links below to Sovereign Spirits, to Tony Sayers. You know, there are a couple channels that talk about the Soul Trap. Eric Dubay, you know, he's always got a good talk on it. And it's not a fearful thing. It's not a conclusion. It's just another open-ended conversation. If you're honest, if you're open to having it. And I guess I really didn't give you the big reason why most people think it's a soul trap here. Because just imagine you were God. And I'm a person, I don't believe in any God. I really don't think that's a real thing. I think it's a illusory idea that came from this realm. So imagine that you're God, though, right? Or you could even imagine that you're designing a computer video game, okay? In more like human terms. Like you're going to design a video game to where you can do anything. So why would you design a game with pain and suffering, and that in order to live, you got to keep consuming other creatures? You got to kill plants, you got to kill animals. You know, you got to waste comes out your back end. You know, sometimes you get sick and snot comes out your nose, and you just sometimes you get sick and you're laid up for a couple days. Some people get sick and they're like get tumors. It's kind of this question of, if God, a supreme, ultimate, powerful, yada yada creator, could create anything, why would you create this? Why wouldn't you create a place where we have no pain? I cut myself and that's weird. And then it just slap it back together. There's no blood. There's no death. Like, you kind of have to think about how cruel it is for a creator to make a place where things die, and then people have to see their loved ones dying, or a father has to see their kid die, you know, or it's just so many crazy, horrific things happen here because of the way it was designed. And you could imagine a place of perfection where none of this could happen, because you created it differently, entirely differently, to where I just got to walk outside, look at the sunlight for 5 seconds. That's all I needed for the day. I don't got to go eat anything. I don't got to go eat anything. I don't have to go make money, right? Like, you got to think about this realm and money, and how most people are doing the opposite they should be, based off of money. Like, they're hurting each other, hurting themselves to make money. And how it's just a made-up thing. I know that we could all be sitting around farming, as crude and as, what do you want to call it? Luddite, right? It's a big Luddite-like thing that would be. Like, that would be a peaceful world. And I don't care. Like, I'd rather have a peaceful world that's boring than witness all this suffering and war mongering and lying and setting people up for just massive destruction in the future. Setting people up to be brain chipped. And that's why I think it's the soul trap, such an interesting concept, because it aligns with your leaders, your world leaders, and all the people that are worshipped. It aligns with all your gods. Your God is going to save you like a file in a computer. It wants to save you. Right? It's just like all these leaders or misleaders of the world. They want to brain chip you and use you as a human resource. They're not here to free you. They're here to trick you. And how this whole place just seems like a big trap. Like, people get hooked on things. They get sucked in by people, ideas, by groups. You know, just way too many tricks and traps here for it to be some legitimate reality. But that's me coming from my deep inner zone, right? I figure the NPCs, they wouldn't know anything different. This would be amazing to them. And they would say that I was created and that we're all one. And I'm going to dissolve into the one day. Yeah, that's just exactly, because they want you to give them your soul. And then when you're dead, to give them your essence, right? So like at the end of the soul trap theory, it's like you die and they trick you to reincarnate. They trick you back into the light. They trick you with grandma. They trick you with Jesus. It's one of those things to where if you don't know yourself through and through, and you die and then you wake up in another dream realm and there's the pearly gates and there's Jesus and there's like, I just see that as a very plausible reality. It's how people are tricked, because life and death is a trick itself. So of course you trick them in the next dream realm or wherever, and on it goes. And so this whole idea that they want to chip people and put them in a computer, they're trying to layer people inside of this matrix. And who knows how many layers deep we already are. But it just feels like another layer. You know, if they can take you out of this reality, box you into the computer's reality, why wouldn't they, if you allow it? And that's why I think everybody has the ultimate freedom that's real. And they can't allow themselves to be soul trapped and soul captured here. But I'm not going to be trapped. I'm not going to be tricked. I feel like if there's a whole soul trap realm, there's got to be a soul free realm, to where there's a realm of total freedom and truth. And we're like a wrecking ball in these kind of soul trap realms. Like, we come into these places and just point out certain things that just tear it all apart. And it could just be a bunch of like different video game realms that we've created in our eternal quest to not get bored. Just kind of seem like for all this to be happening, we must try to not get bored throughout eternity. It must be a big game of like, how crazy can you make a reality? But I'm not trying to make everybody down and feel sad that your soul's trapped. I'm just throwing this idea out there. This might be a great challenge in this realm, that's all. Doesn't have to be a trap. But I hope you enjoyed this one. I love y'all.